let's take a brief tour of the interface to familiarise ourselves with what's there and what it's called. Now, to the left of the interface, we've got the toolbar or the toolbox. Now we can remove this. It's now docked to that left hand side, but if I go up in this little dark area at the top, I can click and drag and I can bring the toolbox out and I can redock it to whichever side I want. If I wanted, I could go and I could redock it on this side if I wanted. I don't find that to be particularly useful. I like it on the left hand side. Now if you like two columns of tools, then you can still visualize two columns of tools with this little double arrow head up at the top of the toolbox here. If you click on that, it brings it back to a two column toolbox. I've got used to my single column now, so I'm just going to click that to put it back to a single column. Now you can leave it free floating as it is, but I prefer it to be docked. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab these two little lines here. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it, and it's a bit like dragging it off the edge of Photoshop. You've got to get it so it goes right past the edge and then this blue line appears. And that means it's going to dock it to that edge, like magnetize it. And then when I let go, it docks it in that edge in its own little area and it's fixed now. It won't move. Now the toolbox obviously contains all the tools that we're going to use. And if I hover over one, you'll see that if you just wait a sec, it'll bring up a little tool tip for you to say, well, that's the keyboard shortcut, and it tells you the name. That's the move tool. This one is the rectangular marquee tool. Now, it's hard to see sometimes, but there is a little triangle at the bottom corner here of some of the tools. And if you click in that area, it brings a flyout menu. And these are similar tools that are all gathered together, but they're all in one place, but they're hidden, they're underneath. So obviously the rectangular marquee tool is at the top. So if I want to access the elliptical marquee tool, what I've got to do is to click on that tool, go into the menu, down to elliptical marquee tool, and let go, and that tool is now selected. You can see there's several tools that have this. You click and there are lots of tools, but they're hidden underneath. So if you can't see the tool that you want, it's probably because it's not actually the selected tool, it's just hidden. Okay, moving on up, we've got the menu bar at the top. And here we've got 11 main menu items. Here we've got File, Edit, Image, Layer, Type, Select, Filter 3D, View, Window, and Help. Now, if we just have a look at some of these menus, I'll just go into there and we'll see that some of the menus have actually little dots called ellipses after them. So image size here has some little dots after it. And this means that there's going to be a dialog box coming where you can enter some variations. So if I click on image size, you'll see I get the image size dialog box come up and I can enter some details in here. And we'll have a look at another one where we've got match font. Anything that's got little dots after it means that it's going to bring up a dialog box. Now some of the menu items have a little arrow next to them. And so here we've got new fill there, and what this little black arrow means is that there are more menu items. And here you can see we've got more menu items and we've got little ellipses, which means that there is going to be a dialog box if we click on gradient. Now if we look at the right hand side of each menu, we'll see there's this, it says Shift plus Control plus and Alt Shift Control. These are the keyboard shortcuts that are assigned to that particular command. Now there is a lot of them, but it is worth getting to know some of them. You'll never get to know them all. There is thousands. But there are certain ones which are very, very useful for you. And they are cross-platform. So if you're using Elements or something like that, some of these keyboard shortcuts do translate. So here we can see levels, Control and L, curves, Control and M on mine. And like I said, some of these, they're really worth getting to know. They will save you an awful lot of time and a lot of, well, not mousing around. Now in addition to this, we have got context sensitive menus, which it depends where you click. So there's not just one set of menus if you click anywhere. So here if I go into the layer and I right click to get some context sensitive menus, these are menus that are to do with layers. But if I go down underneath here and I right click, I get a different set of menus. If I go onto the pasteboard and right click, I get a different set of menus. And if I go onto the image and I right click, I get my brushes. So there are lots of helpful context menus, but you've got to realise it depends where you click. So if you right click and you don't see the menu you're after, you may just be clicking in the wrong place. Okay, next, underneath the menu bar, we've got the tool options bar. And these are all the options that are associated with the selected tool. So here we've got a tool that's selected, and these are all the options to do with it. And if we pick a different tool, these change. So if I click on the move tool, you'll see that these are all the options that are associated with the move tool. And the marquee tool, if I select a marquee tool, there's a different set of options. So all these options will change dependent on which tool you have selected. Now over on the right hand side here, we have the panels. Now this is where a lot of the heavy lifting happens. And here we can see we've got the layers panel, we've got a channels panel, and we've got a history panel. And in the layers panel, this is where all the exciting stuff happens in. With layers, we can add layers, delete layers, we can do lots of cool stuff. I'll just add a layer, and we'll see that I've duplicated that layer, and it's called it layer 1. Now if I go into my history panel, you'll see that Big Brother Photoshop has been watching me. This is the stuff that I've been doing since I opened this image. I've opened the image, I've dragged some guides around, and then I've made a layer via copy. And this is good because it's like having a little time machine. You can go back in history. If you make a mistake and find you've got something wrong, you can click back in history, and now I'm back at the state that I started before I did all this. Now there are lots of other panels which we'll explore in more detail in future videos. Now down at the bottom left here, we've got what's called the status bar. And the first part of the status bar on the left is the zoom percentage. And you can click and swipe across, and you can change this. So change it to 50, press the return key, and it zooms you out to 50%. If you want to zoom back into 100, you can repeat that, but there's a little shortcut. If you go into the toolbar on the zoom tool and double click, it brings you straight back to 100% every time. Immediate to the right of the zoom is a display for the document sizes. Now the number on the left displays the uncompressed size of the image. If it were to have all its layers flattened, the number on the right displays the uncompressed size of the document, including all the layers and the channels. So for instance, if I go to my layers panel and I add a layer, I'll just duplicate that layer. If we go down now, you'll see that the document size without the layers is 1.91 megabytes, and with the layers and everything that you would add, it's 3.82 megabytes. And that's useful information. And there's also the potential for more information. This little arrow here at the end, if we click on that, you get a lot of additional information that you can display. So if you wanted, you could display the document profile, you could do the document dimensions. This is 1000 pixel by 667 pixels. My favourite really is the document size, so it lets me keep an eye on how big my actual image is getting. Now this big bit in the middle here, this is the workspace. This is where your images appear and all your work's done. Now round the outside of this workspace, we've got what's called the rulers. You can see this one here. We've got a ruler at the top and a ruler at the bottom. Now this can be hidden with a keyboard shortcut of Control and R. We'll take the rulers away and bring them back. And you can change the actual units that's used in the rulers by moving your mouse into the ruler and right click, and you can select from pixels, inches, centimeters, points, and percent. I'll leave it set for percent. Another useful feature that comes out of the rulers is the guides. Now what you can do is, if I move my mouse into a ruler and left click and drag, I can drag out a guide, and this helps me to see that is totally horizontal. And I can also drag out vertical guides. And you can drag out as many as you like, so you can really start lining things up from a composition point of view. Now if you need to move these guides, if you hold the control key down and hover over the guide, you get that little double arrow, and that means you can drag it and move it. So I can actually drag these guides and reposition them, or I can move them off altogether. And I'll just move these so they disappear and just move them back into the rulers and off they go. Well, that's a brief tour of the Photoshop interface. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up or leave a comment in the area under the video. If you get a minute, click the subscribe button so when I produce a new video, you're the first to know. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.